blood. It stained her hands, her breath, the broken earth beneath her. The night howled with voices that once called her sister, now spitting curses as their claws tore through the dark. Cursed thing. Feral whore. Not fit to be pack. Lyra stumbled through the ruins, ribs cracked, wolf silent in her chest. Each step burned, but stopping meant death. Behind her, laughter echoed, a cruel chorus. They hadn't just exiled her, they wanted her to bleed out alone. She pressed a hand to her chest as if she could hold her heart together. I was theirs. I gave everything. And still, they left me to rot. The shadows stirred then, curling around her ankles, whispering like hungry ghosts. They wanted to answer, to fight back, to devour the ones who betrayed her. But Lyra flinched, terrified of her own reflection in the black water pooling at her feet. If the pack was right, if she was cursed, then maybe this was her punishment. Her knees gave out. She sank against a crumbling wall, breath ragged. Somewhere in the distance, engines rumbled. A new sound, different from the pack. Her pulse skipped, danger, or salvation. She didn't know what scared her more. Still, she whispered into the night, voice breaking. Please, if anyone can hear me, don't let me die here. Not like this. Not forgotten. And just like that, everything changed. The shadows surged forward, carrying her plea into the dark, straight toward the Alpha who would either save her or destroy her. Chapter 1. Blood. Dirt. Hunger. That was all she knew. Lyra crouched low in the ruins, her ribs sharp under torn skin, her breath ragged as she licked the copper taste from her cracked lips. The Shadowlands didn't forgive weakness, and she had nothing left but a stubborn heartbeat. Yet the sound of paws crunching rubble snapped her still. Rogue wolves. Their howls split the dead air, sharp and cruel, promising she was nothing more than prey. No matter how hard she tried, her wolf stayed silent. Silent for years. Silent since the night they ripped her from the pack, chained her to stone, and tried to burn her soul from her flesh. Her chest ached as she pressed herself into the broken wall of a collapsed factory. The stench of rusted metal clung to her skin, mixing with her own blood. Don't breathe. Don't move. Don't let them hear. But then, the scrape of claws was too close. Her body moved on instinct, darting through shadows, bare feet bleeding as she stumbled over glass and steel. They chased, their snarls echoed, and the ruins themselves seemed to laugh at her desperation. Eventually she collapsed near a burned-out doorway, chest heaving, hands shaking so hard she couldn't lift herself. The rogues prowled just beyond the smoke and twisted iron, circling, waiting. The silence stretched. Then the ground rumbled. Engines, heavy, controlled. Not the sound of beasts, but machines. Her head jerked up, eyes wild as black-armored vehicles cut through the ash-choked street. Their lights glared like predator eyes. She curled tighter, trembling. Humans? Wolves? Hunters? She didn't know what scared her more, the rogues outside or the strangers rolling in with enough force to crush everything in their path. The rumble swallowed the growls. The rogues scattered. And just like that, Lyra was alone with the thunder of approaching power. Crush him. Damon Blackwood's voice was calm, yet every man in the boardroom flinched. He stood at the head of the long steel table, tall and broad, his suit cut like armor. Behind him the skyline bled golden fire, reflecting against glass walls that seemed more like a throne room than an office. The rival executive across from him swallowed hard, papers trembling in his hands. But if we move too aggressively, the shareholders... Damon's stare sliced him clean. Shareholders follow strength. Weakness bleeds them dry. And I don't bleed. Silence. Only the faint hum of the city far below. His wolf stirred beneath the surface, restless but chained the way it always was. Damon had built his empire on control, on cold precision. Love was weakness. Emotion was a liability. And he'd burned both from his system long ago. Still, As he watched the man crumble before him, there was no satisfaction, only the endless cycle. Build, break, rule. More importantly, the Northern Territories were bleeding profit. And to Damon Blackwood, that was war. Soon after, he dismissed the board with a flick of his hand. His gaze turned toward the dark horizon, where the Shadowlands spread like a scar. "That zone is mine now," he murmured, "and I'll see it myself." Which meant tomorrow, Damon Blackwood, the Alpha King, the tycoon who never risked his own skin, would walk the borderlands. And fate was already waiting. The world tilted. Lyra collapsed onto the cold ground, her body too broken to keep moving. Her vision blurred, the ruins spinning as shadows closed in around her. With his scent in the air, the world changed. Engines roared closer, brakes screeching as boots hit the dirt, voices shouted, clipped and sharp, armored men fanning out with weapons drawn. "Sir, we've got something." Her chest ached as rough hands turned her over. She clawed weakly, lips pulled back in a feral snarl. "Don't touch me. Don't see me." But then, a growl. Deep. Possessive. It rolled like thunder, silencing every soldier on the street. The man who stepped through the smoke was not like the others. Tall, commanding, eyes dark as midnight. His presence struck like a blade, and yet something deeper, wilder, coiled in the air between them. The moment their eyes locked, her world narrowed. His wolf slammed into him, roaring mate. Damon staggered, rage and hunger ripping through his iron control. He hadn't felt it in decades. He didn't want this. He couldn't want this. And yet, her scent hit him. Ash, blood, shadows, fragile, feral, his. "Take her," he ordered, voice rawer than he meant. "Sir, she's barely human. Take her." And just like that, everything changed. Lyra's fight faded into darkness as soldiers lifted her into the vehicle. Damon's gaze burned on her face, his wolf clawing against its cage. Because of that choice, the ruthless Alpha King carried a feral stranger into the heart of his empire, and the bond between them had already begun to unravel everything. Chapter 2. Lyra woke to silence. Not the silence of the Shadowlands, broken glass, distant howls, the scrape of rogues prowling for scraps. This silence was heavier, sealed, sterile. Her eyes opened to glass walls that climbed into the clouds, silver and black furniture gleaming beneath soft golden lights. The air was too clean, filtered and sharp with chemicals she didn't recognize. She bolted upright. Her breath came in ragged bursts as she scanned the room. No exits, no dirt, no shadows, no freedom. A gilded cage. The sheets tangled around her legs like vines. She clawed at them, stumbling off the bed barefoot. Her reflection flashed in the towering window. A gaunt creature with hollow eyes and scars crisscrossing her skin. Not human, not wolf, nothing. The door opened. Her body slammed back against the glass, teeth bared in a snarl. Damon Blackwood filled the doorway. Immaculate suit, broad shoulders, eyes that glowed faintly, betraying the beast inside. For a long moment they only stared at each other. His presence rolled into the room like a storm, commanding every inch of space. Her pulse raced. His wolf pressed forward. The mate bond vibrated in the air, unbearable, undeniable. "Eat," he said finally, his voice a low command. He set a tray on the glass table, meat, fruit, bread. Steam curled into the air, rich and warm. Her stomach twisted with hunger so violent it made her knees weak. But she didn't move. Damon studied her with unnerving patience. He wasn't a man who begged. He didn't plead. He ordered. Yet with her, his tone softened in ways he didn't understand. She stayed curled against the glass, eyes locked on him like he was the true predator. For the first time in years, Damon Blackwood wasn't sure who held the power in the room. Nights blurred into days. Lyra wouldn't speak. She wouldn't eat unless he was gone. The staff whispered about her, unsettled by her silence, the way her eyes followed every movement with feral suspicion. Damon dismissed them all. It was only him now, Him and her. He found himself drawn back to the penthouse night after night, standing at the edge of her silence. He hated the vulnerability of it, the way his wolf prowled every time she flinched from him, the ache in his chest when her ribs showed sharper than before. Control. That was his creed, his strength. Yet in her presence, control slipped through his fingers like ash. One night when the city lights glared cold beyond the windows, he broke his own rule. He sat, on the floor. Not at the head of the table, not looming over her, but across from her, his back against the wall. No words, no commands, just presence. Hours passed. His wolf huffed in irritation, but Damon remained. At last, Lyra's fingers twitched. She reached out, trembling, and dragged the plate toward her. Her eyes flicked to his, quick, sharp, like she expected punishment. Damon said nothing. She ate, slowly, desperately, and for the first time since he'd found her in the ruins, she didn't look like she was ready to vanish. It began with the lights, soft flickers that danced across the penthouse ceiling, shadows bending in ways they shouldn't. At first, Damon thought it was faulty wiring, until the darkness rippled in rhythm with her breaths. Lyra sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her trembling hands. The air around her thickened, shadows curling like smoke sliding over her arms, coiling through her hair. They whispered against the glass, tendrils forming shapes that vanished when she blinked. Her chest heaved. She clutched her head. Not again. Not this. Damon entered at the wrong moment. The shadows reacted violently, striking toward him like blades. His guards shouted, drawing weapons. "Stand down," Damon growled, his own wolf flashing in his eyes. He stepped forward, slow, deliberate, the tendrils brushing his suit like living things. Lyra's voice cracked, barely a whisper. "Stay back." But Damon didn't. He reached through the darkness, closing his hand around hers. Heat met cold, shadow met steel. For a heartbeat, the room pulsed with power, black and wild, threatening to consume them both. Then it stilled. The shadows curled back into nothing, leaving only silence and her ragged breaths. Behind him, his advisor hissed, "She's dangerous. You can't keep her here. She'll destroy everything." Damon didn't look away from her. His grip remained firm, grounding her. "No," he said quietly. "She's mine." And the city beyond the glass seemed to shudder at the promise in his voice. Chapter 3. Damon stood before the council table, his jaw a line of stone. 7 alphas, old blood. Tradition wrapped in arrogance. Their suits were expensive, their eyes sharp as blades. "She doesn't belong here," one of them said, voice slick with venom. "She's feral, shadow-touched. You risk exposing us all by keeping her in your penthouse like some—" "Say it." Damon's growl cut through the chamber, low and vibrating with his wolf's rage. The man faltered, but only slightly. "Like some pet." Damon's fingers curled against the polished wood. The beast inside him surged forward, demanding blood. Only years of iron control kept his claws from shredding the table. "She is my mate," Damon said finally. The words landed like thunder, silencing the chamber. A ripple of unease passed through the alphas. Mate bonds were sacred, undeniable. To reject one was to risk madness. But the eldest counselor leaned forward, eyes narrowing. A mate, tainted by shadows. "Damon, you risk your throne. You risk all of us. Mark me. If she loses control, if she brings the darkness into this city, it will not be her blood alone that's spilled." Lyra pressed her back to the cold glass of the penthouse, every word echoing through the hidden vents. Her hands shook, shadows coiled at her feet, restless and alive, as the truth cut deep. Not wanted, not safe, not mate, threat. Her fragile trust cracked like glass under pressure. Neon lights pulsed far below, a jungle of steel and fire. Lyra crouched at the edge of the balcony, heart hammering as the wind lashed her hair across her face. Her wolf howled for freedom. Her shadows whispered escape. She leapt. The air tore past her skin as she fell. Then shadows surged, cushioning her landing in an alley slick with rain. Her knees buckled, but she ran, barefoot, half mad with panic. The city was a maze of scents and sounds too sharp, too fast. Engines roared, humans shouted, wolves prowled unseen, their scents marking territories she didn't understand. "Run, little wolf," a voice hissed from the dark. She froze. Rogues emerged from the shadows, 3, no 4, eyes gleaming, teeth bared. They smelled the bond on her, the power, the fear. "Alpha's bitch," one snarled. "Easy prize." Her hands shook. Darkness bled from her palms, curling into jagged shapes. The rogues lunged, and the night split open. Damon's wolf hit the first rogue like a storm, fur black as midnight, eyes burning gold. Bones cracked under his weight. Blood sprayed the alley walls. The others didn't stand a chance. Lyra pressed against the bricks, trembling as Damon shifted back before her, chest heaving, blood dripping down his arm. His eyes locked on hers, furious, desperate, raw. "Do you want to die?" he snarled, voice roughened by the beast. "Because that's what running gets you." She couldn't breathe, couldn't answer. The shadows shrank back, curling into nothing. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of her power. She was afraid of him, and the way her chest ached at the sight of his blood. He dragged her back, not with chains but with the iron pull of the bond. The penthouse door slammed shut behind them. The city lights painted fire across Damon's skin, illuminating the tension carved into every line of his body. "You don't understand," Lyra whispered, voice breaking. "I can't control it. I'll destroy everything. I'll destroy you." Damon closed the distance in 2 strides, his hand cupping her jaw with a grip both tender and unyielding. His eyes burned gold, his wolf clawing free. "Then destroy me," he growled, "but don't you ever run from me again." Her lips parted in protest, but his mouth crushed against hers, savage and consuming. The bond flared white-hot, a wildfire tearing through the cracks of her broken soul. Her shadows writhed, spilling across the room, but instead of tearing them apart, they wrapped around both of them, binding, protecting, surrendering. Her breath caught. His hand slid to her waist, pulling her flush against the hard lines of his body. For the first time, she felt what it meant to be claimed, not with chains, but with fire. The kiss broke, leaving her gasping. His forehead pressed to hers, his voice a ragged vow. "You are mine, Lyra, shadows or not, and I will burn this city to ash before I let them take you from me." Chapter 4. The city glowed silver blue, skyscrapers spearing the clouds. Lyra lay tangled in silk sheets, her heart still hammering from the night before. Damon's kiss burned on her lips, seared into her soul, but the bed beside her was empty. Her throat tightened. Had it all been her imagination? Another trick? Another cruel test? She rose quietly, shadows trailing like restless pets at her heels. In the kitchen she found him, shirtless, bruised, pouring black coffee as though he hadn't nearly destroyed her with a kiss. "You should be resting," his voice rumbled without turning. Her hands curled against her chest, resting, not wanted, not trusted. "Was it real?" she asked, her voice small, betraying the storm inside her. Damon froze. For a heartbeat, his wolf surged in his gaze, raw, possessive, undeniable. But then he shuttered it, placing the mask back on like armor. "It was survival," he said, low and cold. "Don't mistake it for more." The words cut like a blade, but she didn't see the way his hand trembled around the mug, the way his wolf howled inside him at the lie. The training floor of Blackwood Tower was built like a fortress, reinforced steel, mirrored walls, weapons lining every edge. "Again," Damon ordered, circling her like a predator. Lyra stood in the center, hands trembling, shadows coiling out of her like smoke. They twisted into shapes, blades, tendrils, claws, before splintering uncontrollably. "I can't," she gasped. "Yes, you can. Control them. Control yourself." His command struck deep. Her wolf bristled. Her power surged. The shadows exploded outward in a violent wave, shattering mirrors, bending steel, hurling shards of glass like knives. One ripped toward Damon. "No!" Lyra screamed. But he didn't dodge. He stepped into it. The shadow spear pierced his shoulder, blood staining his shirt. His face twisted in pain. But his voice was steady, unwavering. "See? You can't destroy me." His eyes burned gold, locking onto hers. "You're stronger than your fear. Own it, or it owns you." Her hands shook as the shadows slowly receded, curling back into her skin like guilty serpents. She wanted to collapse, to flee. But his words sank deeper than any wound. It began like any other board meeting. Men in suits, women in heels, charts glowing on screens. Lyra stood at the back, half hidden, shadows tight around her like a second skin. Damon had insisted she stay close. Then the scent hit her. Wrong, sharp, metallic. Not human. The boardroom doors slammed shut. Figures in sleek suits dropped their masks, eyes flashing amber, claws unsheathing. Assassins. Wolves loyal to the alpha who had left her for dead. Chaos erupted. Shouts, overturned chairs, blood spilling as claws met flesh. Lyra froze, her chest locking. Memories of the Shadowlands roared back. Screams, fire, betrayal. One assassin lunged for Damon. Her shadows moved before thought. They erupted from the floor, wrapping the wolf in jagged tendrils, snapping bone with a sickening crack. Another shadow blade skewered a second assassin through the chest. The boardroom went silent. Dozens of eyes turned to her, counselors, advisors, humans, all staring at the Omega who was no Omega at all. Lyra stood trembling in the center of the room, her power dripping in black coils around her, her secret bared. Damon's wolf growled low, stepping forward until he stood beside her. His hand brushed her back, a vow in the touch. "Anyone who calls her a threat," he snarled to the stunned room, "will answer to me." Lyra's shadows shivered around her. For the first time, she wasn't sure whether they were her curse or her crown. Chapter 5. The boardroom reeked of blood and fear. Broken glass glittered like stars across the floor, Lyra's shadows still slowly retreating into her trembling body. The silence cracked with a single voice. "She's dangerous," one counselor spat, rising to his feet, blood on his suit sleeve. "You brought a weapon into our midst." Murmurs spread, whispers like knives. Omega. Abomination. Curse. Damon's aura exploded. His wolf surged, golden fire in his eyes as he slammed his hand onto the table. The wood cracked beneath his palm. "She saved your lives." His voice thundered, the wolf behind it undeniable. "Without her, you'd be corpses on this floor. Do not mistake power for threat." Lyra's chest squeezed. He was defending her. Yet the glances around the room told her the damage was done. No matter what Damon said, she had become a symbol of fear. And symbols had always been the first to burn. That night, Lyra couldn't breathe inside her own skin. She fled to the rooftop of Blackwood Tower, the city stretched endless and indifferent beneath her. Her shadows rippled in the night air, restless, hungering. A whisper slid through the wind. "Little wolf, you survived." Her blood froze. A figure stepped from the darkness across the rooftop, cloaked, eyes burning crimson. She knew that scent, iron and ash, the Shadowlands, her old tormentor, the one who had hunted her kind into extinction. Lyra staggered back, but Damon was there in an instant, his wolf slamming into the night. The intruder smiled, lips curling with cruel promise. "The girl belongs to us," the shadow figure hissed. "And when she breaks, your empire falls." The next heartbeat he was gone, swallowed by the night. Lyra collapsed to her knees, shaking, shadows spiraling around her like a storm. Damon dropped beside her, his hand steady on her cheek, grounding her even as her past ripped her apart. Tell me what he took from you, he whispered, almost pleading. Her tears burned. Everything. The attack came the next day. It began with power outages, lights flickering in Blackwood Tower, security systems dying one by one. Then the alarms shrieked, echoing through the skyscraper's bones. Lyra and Damon ran through the corridors as shadows and flames erupted in different wings of the tower. Sabotage. Inside job. They reached the top floor just as the walls trembled, explosions rocking the skyscraper. Damon's council scattered. Wolves turned on wolves, allies revealed as traitors. In the chaos, Damon shoved Lyra into his office, its glass walls shattering as a pack of assassins poured in. "Stay behind me," Damon growled, shifting partially, his wolf form bursting through in violent flashes, claws, fangs, golden fire. But Lyra's shadows refused to obey. They rose around her, alive, furious. She wasn't behind him anymore. She was beside him. Together, wolf and shadow carved through the attackers back to back, blood and power colliding in a dance as intimate as it was brutal. At the end, panting, glass shards crunching beneath their boots, Damon turned to her, bloodied, bruised, but alive. "You're not my weapon," he said hoarsely, voice breaking. "You're my equal." Her shadows trembled, her chest aching with a truth she didn't want to feel. Because the more he claimed her as his equal, the more the world would come to destroy them both. Chapter 6. The boardroom was no longer a place of power. It was a battlefield dressed in glass and steel. Damon stood at the head of the table, his shirt torn and streaked with blood that wasn't all his own. Council members sat rigid, some with bandages, others with eyes sharp and accusing. "You promised us security," one snarled. "And instead the tower burns. Our stocks plummet. Investors are pulling out. The syndicate whispers of weakness." Damon's jaw clenched, his wolf snarling beneath his skin. But it wasn't just anger. It was the weight of truth. His empire, once unshakable, had cracks. From her shadowed corner, Lyra felt those words like knives. "They blame him for me." She folded her arms tight, as if to keep herself from unraveling. Her shadows curled low to the floor, restless, mirroring her guilt. Damon's gaze cut to her for a heartbeat, something softer flickering in his eyes. Then his mask returned, his voice ice. "Let them whisper," he said. "Whispers mean they're afraid, and fear is still control." But Lyra saw the slight tremor in his hand when he lifted his glass. Even kings bled. Later, in the penthouse, silence pressed heavy. The city glittered beneath them, indifferent to the bloodshed inside the tower. Damon poured himself a drink, amber liquid trembling in the glass. Lyra stood by the window, the moonlight painting her in silver and shadow. "They won't stop until I'm ashes," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "Until we are ashes." Damon's throat tightened. He crossed the room, stopping inches from her. The bond between them hummed, dangerous and alive. "They can come," he growled softly. "Let them try. They'll have to go through me." Her laugh was hollow. "You don't understand. They already tried once. My own pack, my alpha. He wanted me erased because of what I am." Her shadows trembled, brushing his skin like smoke. "I was nothing. A ghost." Damon's chest burned with a rage he couldn't contain. Slowly, he lifted his hand and cupped her jaw, forcing her to meet his gaze. "You're not nothing. You're mine." The word slipped out, raw, primal. His wolf bared itself through him, no armor, no control. Lyra's breath caught. Shadows curled around his wrist but didn't push him away. Instead, they shivered with the same dangerous hunger he felt in his veins. For one stolen heartbeat, they leaned closer. Her lips, his breath, until the world outside ceased to exist. Then she stepped back, shadows snapping to her side. "If I let myself believe that," she whispered, eyes burning, "I'll lose everything again." The next morning, the news hit like wildfire. Screens across the tower blared with headlines. Blackwood Empire crumbling. Rumors of Omega Mate-Rock Alpha King's reign. Paparazzi wolves circled the tower like vultures. Investors pulled out in droves, and hidden hands fueled the chaos. At the same time, Damon's security intercepted a chilling message. The Shadow Queen belongs to me. Surrender her, or watch your empire fall piece by piece. Damon crushed the note in his fist, fury radiating like heat waves. But Lyra saw the calculation in his eyes, the cold strategist surfacing again, and it terrified her, because for the first time, she wasn't sure if Damon would fight for her as his mate, or trade her life to save his kingdom. Chapter 7. The boardroom's glass walls trembled under raised voices. Damon's lieutenants fought like jackals. 2 of our divisions just walked, one barked. Signed contracts with your rival overnight. Someone on this council sold us out. Damon's gaze swept the room like a blade. He didn't need his wolf to smell betrayal. The stench was thick, metallic, suffocating. Lyra lingered at the door, her hands clenched, shadows coiling under her nails. She felt every drop of venom in the air. They didn't just doubt Damon, they hated her. She was the ghost haunting their king, the weakness they couldn't forgive. Damon slammed a hand on the table, shattering glass into jagged pieces. Find the traitor, now. His voice was low, lethal. But when his gaze flicked to Lyra, the steel faltered for half a second, as if he knew her presence alone had triggered this war. For the first time, she didn't look away. If I stay silent, I'll damn him. If I speak, I'll damn myself. The alarm screamed before she could decide. Red light washed over the tower's pristine halls. Security feeds flickered. Wolves in black infiltrated the lower floors, tearing through Damon's defenses like paper. Chaos erupted. Council members scrambled. Damon barked orders, his wolf snarling to the surface. And then, on the mezzanine, a dozen armed shifters breached the floor, claws flashing, eyes wild. Lyra froze, panic crushing her chest. Her scars burned. This is how it ends again. This is how they finish me. But then, one of them lunged for Damon. Something inside her broke. The shadows in the hall convulsed like living things. They surged from the walls, from the corners, from beneath her feet, snaring the attackers mid-strike. Tendrils of pure night dragged them back, pinning their howls into silence. Gasps filled the room. Soldiers who had mocked her stared in terror. Even Damon's inner circle stepped back. Lyra stood shaking, her chest heaving, eyes glowing with abyssal light. I will not be erased again. Her voice carried, deepened by something not entirely her own. The power of the Shadow Queen. When the hall was cleared, Damon found her alone in his chambers, curled on the floor, shadows still twitching around her like restless animals. He shut the door quietly. Lyra. She flinched. Don't say my name like I'm yours. Her voice cracked. You saw what I am. They'll never follow me. They'll tear you apart for keeping me here. Damon crossed the room, slow, deliberate, his wolf pacing under his skin. He crouched before her, forcing her to meet his gaze. His eyes burned, not with fear, but with hunger, with possession. They can hate you, he said. They can fear you, but they will never take you from me. Her throat closed, shadows rising between them, but his hand pierced through, gripping hers. His skin burned where her power touched him, but he didn't let go. You think I care about their loyalty? My empire was built on fear, but with you... His voice dropped, raw. With you, I could build something unbreakable. Lyra's eyes filled, torn between terror and the pull of him. And if I destroy you instead? Damon's lips brushed her knuckles, a vow and a warning. Then I'll let you. The bond roared between them, irresistible. Her shadows wrapped around him like chains, but neither pulled away. For the first time, she leaned into him, trembling, as if daring to believe. Chapter 8. The night split open with fire. Explosions rocked Damon's tower, glass raining from the sky. Wolves in armor stormed the plaza, led by a giant with silver scars and a crown of blood. The rival Alpha. From the mezzanine, Damon watched with his council trembling behind him. His empire burned beneath his feet, and every eye cut to Lyra, the monster they feared, the weapon they whispered about. The Alpha's voice thundered from the streets below. "Step down, Damon, or I'll bury you and your whore queen beneath your own empire." Lyra's chest hollowed at the word. Her scars screamed. She almost stepped back into the shadows, almost disappeared like she always had. But Damon's hand brushed hers, steady, anchoring. "Stay with me," he said, not begging, but commanding. "I will not fight without you." The plaza became a battlefield. Damon's wolves clashed with the invaders, claws flashing under burning street lamps. At the heart of it, Damon shifted, his wolf bursting free. Taller, darker, more savage than any other. His howl shook glass from towers. He tore through enemy ranks, a storm of claws and fury. But the rival Alpha was waiting. Their collision cracked concrete. Fang to fang, claw to claw. They were evenly matched, two kings in a death struggle. Blood slicked the pavement. Damon's chest heaved, golden eyes blazing, but the enemy's silver scars seemed to drink every wound and keep him standing. For the first time, Damon faltered, and Lyra felt it like a dagger in her ribs. The rival Alpha caught Damon by the throat, slamming him into shattered glass. Damon roared, but his strength was fading. Lyra's heart split. "I can't lose him. Not like this. Not when I've finally found where I belong." The shadows answered. They erupted from the burning buildings, from the broken earth, from every wound inside her. A tidal wave of darkness, writhing and alive. The battlefield froze as soldiers, friend and foe alike, stared in terror. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes abyssal fire, her scars glowing like brands. Shadows crowned her head, coiling like serpents. She was no victim, no fugitive. She was the Shadow Queen. Her voice rang across the plaza. "You call me whore, you call me monster, but I am the darkness you fear, and the power you'll never break." The shadows struck, wrapping the rival Alpha in chains of pure night. He snarled, struggling, but every movement tightened the grip. Damon tore free, collapsing to his knees, bloodied but alive. Lyra walked past him, her power dragging the rival Alpha to his knees. He spat curses, silver eyes wild with hatred. Lyra's hand hovered at his throat. Her shadows begged for blood. One word from her could end him. But Damon's voice cut through, ragged but sure. "Lyra, don't let them make you into what they fear." Her chest heaved, shadows trembling. Then slowly, she released him. Not in mercy, but in victory. The rival Alpha crumpled, bound, broken, powerless. His pack scattered into the night. The battle was over. Smoke curled through the ruins of Damon's empire. Wolves knelt in the plaza, bloodied but breathing, their eyes fixed on Lyra with awe and dread. She stood at Damon's side, shadows coiling gently now, no longer devouring but protecting. For the first time, she wasn't hiding them. Damon, still half-shifted, staggered to her. His chest was torn, blood soaking his shirt, but his gaze was steady. He cupped her face, his claws barely grazing her skin. "They'll call you queen now," he rasped. "Not because I claim you, but because you claimed yourself." Her breath caught. "And if they still fear me?" His lips brushed hers, fierce and unyielding. "Then let them. A kingdom built on fear endures. A kingdom built with you, with us, will never fall." The kiss deepened, fire and shadow twining, sealing what words never could. Around them, the night bowed. The war was won, and from the ruins of blood and ash the Shadow Queen rose. No longer hunted, no longer broken, a queen beside her king. Epilogue. The war was over. Blackwood Tower still bore its scars, shattered glass, walls blackened with fire. But inside, life pulsed again. Survivors whispered through the halls, rebuilding brick by brick, heart by heart. And in the center of it all stood Lyra. Not the feral girl who once scavenged scraps, not the cursed Omega cast out and chained, but the Shadow Queen, shadows curling at her fingertips like loyal sentinels. Damon stepped beside her, his hand brushing hers, their bond humming, warm, unshakable. His empire was no longer forged by fear, but by the fire they'd survived together. She looked out over the city, where the moonlight bled silver across broken steel. Once, she had begged the night not to let her die forgotten. Now, the night bowed to her. Her wolf stirred, steady and strong. We belong. At last. Lyra's breath caught. The truth was simple. She had been broken. She had been abandoned. She had been unworthy in their eyes. But here, with Damon's steady presence and shadows answering her call, she was everything. And as the wind carried her name through the night, she smiled. Soft. Dangerous. Eternal. The girl in the ruins was gone. The queen had risen.